Good morning to all of you. Please take your seats so we can start on time. I just want to welcome everybody to the 18th Conference of Council of Europe Ministers responsible for sport. I start with a few logistic arrangements. For the interpretation channels, please note that the English language is on channel 1. La langue française, c'est sur le canal numéro 2. And the Portuguese language is on channel number 3. With that, and without further ado, allow me to give the floor to the Council of Europe Deputy Secretary General, Mr. Björn Berge, for his opening address. Mr. Berge, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Gianluca, and a very good morning to all of you. Minister for Parliamentary Affairs of Portugal, dear Pedro. Ministers, Chairperson of the Committee on Culture, Science, Education and Media of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, dear Linda. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. This summer's immensely successful Paris Olympic and Paralympic Games were a triumph for France and for sports. People from around the world watched and celebrated together as competitors pushed the boundaries of the possible, breaking records and spreading joy. In this sense, the Conference of Ministers responsible for sport could not come at a better moment. What we have here in Porto is a unique opportunity to build on the momentum that exists, also coming from the UEFA Euro Championship in Germany, and to take further steps as regards good governance in sports. Yes, we want to ensure that the sports organizations have the autonomy that they need to innovate, prosper, and grow. But we also need to see to it that the legislative and governance frameworks that help them do that is fair, inclusive, and transparent, especially given the increasing complexity of the challenge. Both the range and scale of sports and sports organizations continues to grow, often attracting large amounts of money and commercial interest. This can bring benefits, sponsorship, investment, and career opportunities for athletes and non-athletes alike. But it also opens sports to risks that I believe must be addressed. Excessive commercialization, corruption, and a lack of transparency. And the movement of sports management into the hands of privileged very few, where decisions are taken behind closed doors. So the question is, how then do we want to tackle this? How are we to ensure that sports are open to all and managed in the interest of all? Well, fortunately, we are certainly not starting from scratch. Over the years, we have taken many positive steps with the concrete support and participation of so many people here in this room today. Just look at the revised European Sports Charter, which creates a common framework and basic principles of national sport policies, and make clear the necessary balance between governmental and non-governmental action, with the aim of ensuring sport for all. Just look at the IPACs, the International Partnership Against Corruption in Sport, of which the Council of Europe is a founding partner and active member, and whose benchmark on good governance was coordinated by EPAS, our enlarged partial agreement on sports. In collaboration with our member states, the IOC, and others. Just look at Mars, our network of magistrates and prosecutors for sport, established after the last ministerial conference on sport in Antalya, and which is already doing good work to strengthen international cooperation and the exchange of information on the integrity in sport. And just look at the many interesting debates and key initiatives and issues raised by our Parliamentary Assembly in the Council of Europe and how it helps us move forward. But now is the time to take the next steps. This morning, there will be a session on collaborative governing where we will be able to share ideas and perspectives of sport organizations, public authorities, and others, including the private sector, NGOs, and community groups, and certainly the athletes themselves can come together to better ensure decision-making processes that work for everyone. And this afternoon, there will be an important session on good governance, where we will also discuss not just what rules and structures should be established and how compliance can be achieved, but more fundamentally, how to build an ethical culture which values openness, accountability, and integrity, with the aim of helping sport organizations develop robust mechanisms that prevent, identify, and address misconduct. These aims are all captured in the very strong and relevant draft resolution that you are invited to adopt. The resolution also calls for governments to further support gender equality and empowerment of women in sport. And this is essential. And following the lead provided by the Joint Council of Europe and European Union project All In Plus, which urges action specifically to ensure gender equality in leadership positions. And I look forward to hearing the many new ideas that emerge from tomorrow's morning's focus session on this subject. As we look to increase the number of women taking up senior positions and helping us deliver real change. We'll also have an important discussion on the focus session on dual careers, as many aspiring athletes want to pursue both their passion for sport and other career avenues. For some, this is about personal fulfillment. For others, it is about keeping professional options open. And for others, again, it is necessary so that they have the financial means to pursue their sporting passions. All of this is highly relevant and important. The same is true for people who want to pursue sport and education. And I know from my recent meeting with the Portuguese State Secretary that a very interesting project has been carried out here in Portugal recently, supporting over 1,000 athletes and helping them get an excellent education while pursuing what they love the most, sports. All of this certainly helps young people in particular. And related to this, I also want to congratulate everyone involved in the youth initiative, Champions for Youth in Sports. So, dear friends, it is when we are young that we often establish a lifelong love of sport. For me, it was football. And I believe that we should try to do even more to include young people and youth in helping us decide the future of sports. At the end, let me also raise the following. I think that all of us here share a belief in the benefit that sports bring to us to our health and well-being, and to our communities. Sports also bring closer bonds and a sense of unity that comes from teamwork and a shared passion. And sports governance are, of course, very much part of our wider democracy. That is why we need to put sports and sport governance on the strongest possible democratic footing. And we can only do that by keeping it high on our agenda. Finally, our deepest gratitude goes to you, Minister, to the Portuguese Institute for Sport and Youth in particular, for co-organizing this conference. And I wish all of us a successful days here in beautiful Porto. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Deputy Secretary General, for your opening address. It is now my pleasure to give the floor to Mr. Pedro Duarte, the Minister for Parliamentary Affairs responsible for sport of Portugal. Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you, Gianluca. I hope you understand I will address you in Portuguese. So I apologize for that, but please take advantage of the headphones. I'll take a second. Excelentíssimos
Ministers of Sport, Deputy Secretary General of the Council of Europe, Bjorn Berger, Chair of the Cultural Science, Education and Media Committee of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, Linda Hofstadt, Director General of Human Rights of the Council of Europe, Gianluca Esposito, members of the Council of Europe, Chairman of the European Paralympic Committee, Raymond Blondel. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome. It's a huge honour for Portugal, for this government, to host the 8th conference of the Council of Europe Conference of Ministers of Sport. It's a unique opportunity to strengthen cooperation in sport and to develop policies enabling greater transparency and justice in this field. The conference we are hosting now in our country, as we all know, a platform to discuss and promote values which are fundamental to sport. We can also, to that, the fight against corruption, doping, manipulating results from, and promoting values of ethics and integrity. And these points in themselves highlight the importance of this conference, not just for political leaders, but also for society in general, contributing to a more inclusive, integral and accessible sport, and consequently to a better society. Over the next few hours, we'll have an opportunity to reflect on the achievement and assess the challenges we face. The European Sports Charter, from that to joint policies for sport, we've already come a long way, but we still have to build. The Portuguese government is dedicated to creating a mechanism to make sport more transparent, more inclusive, to promote equal opportunity for people with disabilities. And so for this reason, we have set out some guidelines, implementing a law which ensures that there are equal compositions of men and women in the governing bodies of sports federations, strengthening, preventing, monitoring and fighting doping in match fixing, developing and strengthening school high-performance sport units. And this promotes a twin-track approach. Also, we are expanding that initiative to higher education with a pilot project that is already underway, which we call the UAR Superior, the School High Performance Sport Unit Superior. reviewing the framework law for sport, the basic law of physical activity and sport, reviewing and revising the status of voluntary sport leaders, um, reform of the sports certificate of Sports Court of Arbitration Act, review of the legal regime for sports federations, reviewing the program of legislation which covers the training of trainers. These are just some of Portugal's the priorities, and we know that the debate we're going to have here will add to our moves in this way at this conference. I want to thank everybody for being here, especially delegations who've brought young people here for a discussion which is going to be innovative and suitable to the expectations of future leaders. Now, we talk about physical health, we talk about mental health, we talk about the economic and cultural advantages of that. And just as importantly, we recognize its benefits when it comes to promoting values such as peace, tolerance, inclusion, diversity, and respect for others. I would like to thank all of you for being here, in particular those delegations who have brought their young people with them so that we can discuss these issues appropriately today and tomorrow. I'm going to end with three notes which are very simple but very important. The first one is for the municipalities of Oporto, Matosinhos, and Vila Nova de Gaia, who have given so much to organising this conference to ensure that it takes place with a great success. The second word goes to specifically to the municipalities of Porto and Gaia, who are working together, facing a huge challenge because they want to be the world capital of sport in 2027. In fact, that approach is already underway, and we hope to gain your support for that. And then my third word is for the IPDJ, which is the Portuguese Institute for Sport and Youth, whose partnership with IPAS, the European Parliamentary Ambassador School Program, was tireless in organising this conference. Thank you very much to everybody.
Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you for your welcome address. It is now my pleasure to hand the floor to Ms. Linda Hofstad Helleland, Chairperson of the Committee on Culture, Science, Education and Media of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. Madam Helleland, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and good morning to all you friends of sports. Dear Chairperson Pedro Duarte, dear Deputy Secretary General of the Council of Europe, dear Björn, dear Ministers. It is an honor to be here in Porto with you, and I warmly thank you, dear Minister Duarte, for your hospitality. We are here to discuss how we can enhance sport governance, focusing on two key challenges: moving forward and collaborative governance. We need to move forward. We, the public authorities and the sport movement, must be more ambitious, coherent, and rigorous in enforcing good governance in sport. While progress has been made in areas such as safeguarding athletes' human rights, security and service at sports events, and increasing gender equality and inclusion in sport, challenges remain. We are still struggling to make sport safe. Cases of abuses have multiplied over the last years, and there might be a tendency to hide the problem, sweeping it under the carpet. And dear friends, we know that sport is not yet clean. High-profile doping cases continue to emerge. Doping remains a little danger for thousands of young athletes. It spreads under the radar and is on the rise. Manipulation of sports competition and the flourishing illegal betting industry are a poisoning threat to integrity. Gender equality in sport is still not in sight. A balanced gender representation in sport governance, in particular, remains a challenge. Violence and hate speech still show their ugly head in sport and feature regularly in sport events across all disciplines. Governance standards are not always sufficiently safeguarding the status and regulation of sport organizations. Their implementation varies greatly across them, and progress is fragile with signs of backsliding. We acknowledge with pleasure EPA's and the Council of Europe's contribution in offering concrete solutions to solve these issues and urge those present here today to join them in their efforts. We must move forward. For this, we support entrusting EPAS to examine whether the recommendation on the promotion of good governance in sport and the recommendation on the principle of autonomy of sport in Europe could be revised. We trust that PACE resolution towards a framework for modern sports governance and the report by the PACE Committee on Culture, Science, Education and Media remain relevant. Our resolution includes a list of common core criteria for sports governance and several concrete proposals that we recommend considering. I will highlight two of them. A Council of Europe Convention on Good Governance based on harmonized standards across all sectors, and an independent sport ethics rating system led by a global multi-stakeholder platform and accompanied by a comprehensive good governance implementation and compliance strategy. And this brings me to the second key challenge we face: collaborative governance. In virtually all PACE reports on sport issues, we arrive to the conclusion that there is no need for that there is a need for joint, more systematic and collaborative efforts by all stakeholders involved. And let me illustrate the significance of collaborative efforts by briefly addressing the current issue of withholding funding to the World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA. On one side, certain public authorities might opt to suspend their financial contribution to WADA. On the other, WADA is contemplating potential sanctions against them. From WADA's perspective, public authorities have committed to contributing their fair share to WADA's budget. And it raises questions as to whether withholding payments to exert political leverage is an appropriate strategy. Conversely, from the standpoint of a sovereign nation, it is difficult to accept sanctions imposed by a private entity like WADA, where the only resource is to appeal to another private organization dominated by the sports movement, such as CAS. This scenario highlights the need for an open dialogue among public authorities, the sports community, private entities, and international organizations, anchored in a culture of inclusive governance in sport. Dialogue is not a universal remedy for every issue. Differing viewpoints and the need to bridge them will persist. However, collaborative governance and cooperation at the national and international level will result in more effective solutions to our common problems. We should all work in this direction. Effort towards a collaborative governance will strengthen sport autonomy and empower all parties involved to achieve the revised European Sport Charter's vision of sport. A value-based sport, a sport to vehicle and uphold human rights, a sport for all. Access to a clean and safe sport for all is a fundamental human right, which needs to be firmly rooted in participatory approach to governance in order to materialize. We will never achieve this separately. The Parliament Assembly of the Council of Europe stands ready to contribute to this shift towards a more collaborative sport governance. Its Committee on Culture, Science, Education and Media is at present laying down the foundation to establish a parliamentary alliance for good governance and integrity in sport, a new parliamentary network set to welcome a wide range of stakeholders as foreseen in the PACE Resolution 2199. The alliance will be launched at the Promoting Safety, Integrity, Equality and Inclusion in Sport Interparliamentary Conference, organized by the Greek Parliament and PACE in Athens on the 4th and 5th of November, with a view to formally establish the alliance at the beginning of 2025. We trust you all will support this initiative. Thank you. I wish you a successful meeting and good discussion.
Thank you very much, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, this marks the end of the opening session of the conference. Before we move to the next session, which will be on the European Sports Charter, let me point to your attention the declaration marking the 10th anniversary of the Maccabean Convention, which you can find on your tables. We celebrated this 10th anniversary yesterday here in Alfandega. There will now be a spotlight on the European Sports Charter that you also have on your desks. This charter guides EPAS and its member states in the promotion of the values-based sport. We will begin this session with a short video address by Thomas Bach, President of the International Olympic Committee and Olympic champion in fencing. After that, my colleague Cassandra McTavish will moderate a short panel on the European Sports Charter. I would now ask for the video to be projected, please.
Your Excellencies, as you gather for your ministerial conference, let me first of all express my heartfelt congratulations to all the athletes from your countries that took part in the sensational Olympic Games Paris 2024. The European athletes, their amazing performances, and their sporting success brought so much pride and joy to all the people of Europe. This way, the European athletes contributed greatly to the wonderful success of the Olympic and Paralympic Games Paris 2024. We are very happy, and I may say proud, that in Paris we were able to bring together the athletes from the territories of all 206 national Olympic committees and the IOC Olympic team. They compete fiercely against each other. At the same time, they live peacefully together under one roof in the Olympic Village, even if their countries are divided by war and conflict. They created a culture of peace, sending a powerful message across the globe. This message of togetherness, of joie de vivre, this message of peace, This is what people in Europe and all around the world were longing for. More than half of the world's population followed these Olympic Games. We could only make the Olympic Games Paris 2024 a symbol of global unity and peace through a fundamental commitment to political neutrality and universality. In our world, torn apart by so much hate, wars, and division, the Olympic Games are the only that still unites the entire world in peaceful competition. This is only possible if we are not torn apart by political, religious, cultural, or other interests. Therefore, we at the IOC must always be politically neutral and stand against any kind of discrimination. This is what allowed the Olympic athletes to send a resounding message from Paris to all humankind. Yes, it is possible to build a better, a more peaceful world through sport if we respect the same rules and one another. Our ability to send this message rests on our credibility and integrity. Therefore, your ministerial conference is a timely reminder of what unites us. The themes of this conference, integrity in sport, good governance, inclusion, are grounded in the European Sport Charter. They are also at the heart of the mission of the IOC. In fact, there are key pillars of our Olympic agenda strategic. With this comprehensive reform program, the IOC is putting integrity and good governance front and center in everything we do. We walk the talk. We walk the talk in the three spheres of our responsibility: as an organization, as the custodian of the Olympic Games, and as the leader of the Olympic. From putting in place a robust system of governance and transparency to promoting good governance principles across all levels of sports organizations, to establishing the International Partnership Against Corruption in Sport, to safeguarding human rights at the Olympic Games by fully embracing the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights. As these and many other initiatives show, our approach to integrity is wide-ranging and comprehensive. We are continuously enhancing good governance, integrity, and inclusion in other areas as well, whether promoting gender equality in and through sport, or our many initiatives to support refugees and displaced people by providing safe sport opportunities, or supporting Paralympic sport worldwide. Above all else, ensuring the integrity of sport is a team. We all have a role to play. The 10th anniversary of the Macolin Convention is a wonderful example of the great things we can achieve together if we join hands and complement our respective areas of responsibilities. The European sports model, grounded in solidarity, voluntary work, openness, and the integrity of sports organizations, is another example. This model is not just a framework for sport, it's a blueprint for how sport can serve as a force for good in society. This is why we need to strengthen the European sport model. because sport can only make this contribution to society if the autonomy of sports organizations as well as the solidarity-based model of sport are respected and supported by you, by the public authorities. Also, in this respect, we all have a role to play, and we should play it together. What brings us together is our shared belief in the power of sport to make the world a better place. To build this world, we have to act faster. We have to aim higher. We have to be stronger. And we can only do so together. Because it is only by joining hands that we can truly live our Olympic motto. Faster, higher, stronger, together. In this Olympic spirit, I wish you fruitful discussions and a very successful ministerial conference. All the very best.
Good morning, and thank you very much, Sophie, for the introduction. I'm delighted to bring to you an excellent panel that will share with you a spotlight on the European Sports Charter. We will start with Pedro Diaz, Secretary of State for Sport in Portugal. Your question is, how can public authorities in Portugal actively uphold the values enshrined in the European Sports Charter, particularly regarding the protection and promotion of human rights and through sport? And what measures are being taken to ensure equal access and fair treatment for all athletes?
Thank you. Good morning. I would like to address this question in Portuguese, if you don't mind, switch to the headphones. Portugal tem
Over time, Portugal has shown a commitment to protecting and promoting human rights in the sports domain, and it has established public policies to ensure equal access to sport for everybody. The basic law on physical activity in sport sets a framework in law for sport in Portugal, ensuring universal access to sports for of the Portuguese, irrespective of gender, age, origin, or capacity. A second subject is linked to the national plan for sports ethics, created to promote values such as equality, respect, inclusion, and fair play in sport. That plan is aimed not only at athletes, but also trainers, referees, doctors, nurses, uh, physiotherapists, parents, and practitioners in general. There's a third subject which is linked to an award prize and programs for promoting gender equality to promote women's involvement in various spheres of sport, athletes, leaders, chairs, even referees, and so forth. The law that is ensuring that an equal of men and women are represented on governing bodies of sports organizations. A fourth measure is linked to the increase in sport for all, implementing programs such as Sport for All, promoted by the Portuguese Institute for Sport and Youth, and this means introducing infrastructure structures throughout the country. Another measure is to fight child obesity, to integrate physical education into the earliest cycle of school, and also promoting physical activity in schools to fight against obesity and overweight problems in children. Um, We've also introduced a number of ambassadors. We've got youth prizes. We've got all of this as initiatives which have been introduced by the Portuguese Institute of Youth and Sport, which is responsible for implementing public policy in the sports domain on behalf of the state. In Portugal currently, both sport grants for high performance athletes and other support measures are aimed at athletes who are part of the Olympic Committee and the Paralympic program. That parity is a significant advance in ensuring equal conditions for all high-level athletes. Now, Portugal, since 2016, has introduced structured measures to enable athletes at school age to reconcile their study with sport. The UA program, these are the high performance school programs, have been very successful. And very recently, we have established a pilot scheme to extend this scheme to higher education. And that has already begun. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And now on to our next speaker, Raymond Blondel, President of the European Paralympic Committee. Your question: how does the work of the European Paralympic Committee align its efforts with the principles of the European Sports Charter? And what are the key challenges you see in making sport more inclusive?
Thank you for your question. Before answering your question, allow me to congratulate all the delegates with their remarkable and inspiring achievements of their athletes during the Paralympic Games in Paris. Congratulations. And allow me to make another small remark. The fundamental principle of Paralympic sports that is based on what you still can do and not what you cannot do anymore. What you can contribute and not on what you cannot contribute anymore. If you use this principle as a starting point facing other questions in society, especially questions that refer to marginalized target groups in society, that would really be a paradigm shift for me. This is some food for thought, and I believe the world can learn from Paralympic sports in that sense. Getting back to your question. The European Paralympic Committee works to uphold the key principles of the European Sports Charter, promoting inclusivity, safeguarding the rights of athletes with impairments, but also maintaining the highest ethical standards, all as emphasized in the Charter. And some key areas where our work as a European Paralympic Committee aligns with the Charter is on inclusion and equal access, human rights and non-discrimination, the promoting of ethical values, of course, and also sustainability and cooperation. And the development of sports at all different levels. We as a European Paralympic Committee provide opportunities for athletes on their pathways from a young talent to elite sportsmen and sportswomen. Therefore, for example, next year we will organize, it's a 4-year event, the European Para-Youth Games in Istanbul in Turkey, which is not only a sports event, but has a substantial program, educational program. We call it a discovery program on anti-doping together with the WADA, but also on fair play in sports, safeguarding in sports, classification, a very important issue in the Paralympic sports, but also on the topic how to become a role model, a future role model in society. So in that way, I can say that the work of the EPC is fully aligned with that, what is said in the Charter. Getting to some challenges, yes, there are big challenges amongst, and I'm not going to overlook all the challenges we're facing. Amongst challenges on social and cultural barriers, barriers on terms of cost of participation, but also the lack of representation, visibility, and role models. Role models, only the athletes, but also role models in administrations and diversity in administrations. The biggest two challenges are accessibility in a wide sense, and besides that, policy gaps. Getting back to this accessibility in a wide sense, it's not only about infrastructural accessibility and on a so-called functional level, it's also having the opportunity for people with an impairment to practice sports without barriers nearby on a local level. Also, that is a very important aspect of this accessibility. And getting to the policy gaps, despite the guidance I see from the European Sports Charter, there's no uniform approach. Different national and local policies may lead to inconsistent access to resources, support, and opportunities for people with impairments. I'm a believer of the integrated sports model, and I think that the European Sports Charter can provide more than it does now, a better insight and also a better opportunity and a better platform to share good practice. Good governance, in my opinion, is also a fully integrated governance. So a European sports model is a fully integrated sports model. And I would really advocate for that as an add-on on the European Sports Charter. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now I'd like to invite Vinny Bonsu, Director of Daily Content at Olympic Channel Services, to answer the following question. How can broadcasters incorporate the principles of inclusivity, fairness, and respect as promoted by the European Sports Charter into their content and programming strategy? And what specific steps can they take to better sensitize audiences to these values? And how can their portrayal of sport help shape public perception and behaviors around these critical ideas? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you and good morning. And again, thank you for the great invitation to be part of this discussion. As the director of daily content at Olympics.com, I am very proud to share how our platform, alongside Olympic Broadcasting Services, upholds the values of inclusion, fairness, respect, and also, which is also the core principles of the European Sports Charter. At Olympics.com, we ensure diverse representation that includes the people we hire to work on the games during Olympic years and also out of Olympic years, but also the sports and the athletes from various cultural, ethnic, and gender backgrounds. During the Paris 2024 Games, we reached over 18 million daily users across 206 countries, as my president mentioned earlier, offering over 148,000 pieces of content that highlighted not only mainstream sports, but also minority and adaptive sports, working very closely with the IPC. OBS, Olympic Broadcasting Services, contributed over 11,000 hours of content, ensuring that inclusion was woven into every aspect of the coverage. I'm sure you all saw a piece of content throughout the summer as well. This also included original series, films, and documentaries. Sprint, Raising Simone, Born to Fly with Mondo Duplantis, La Grande Seine, bringing you to the behind the scenes of how we put the games together, and Skater, following 6 European girls on their journey to Paris. We achieved a milestone of 50-50 split when it comes to athlete participation, reflecting our commitment to fairness. Through segments on fair play, we promoted ethical sportsmanship, inspiring our audiences to embrace these values in our daily lives, on and off the field of play. Our storytelling focuses on athletes' achievement rather than their identities. Through the IOC portrayal guidelines and training from our Safe Sports team, which we train all our producers, our writers, our athlete contributors, to ensure that the language remains respectful and steering away from stereotypes. Behind the camera, we also foster diversity through initiatives like the OBS is Framing the Future, where we trained over 70 women on camera operation, helping close the gender gap. We also, for the first time, had a huge number of athletes coming behind the scenes, joining us in the production and the writing of the stories over the summer. For us, ultimately, a portrayal of sports shapes public perception. By promoting inclusion, fairness, and respect in our content, we aim to influence behavior beyond sports. From February to now to September, we had over 325 million people visit the Olympic.com platform, which is a huge responsibility for us to ensure that we're always promoting the European Sports Charter. And this will carry on through to Milano Cortina and also for our first games in Africa, Dakar 26, in 2 years' time. And the work goes on. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce you to Morten Schmidt, Global Director of Programs and Grants at Laureus Sport for Good. Morten, your question: how does the Laureus Sport for Good Foundation incorporate sports ethics and education and values into its programs? And how do these efforts align with the values-based approach to sport in the European Sports Journal?
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for the invitation to come here and reflect on this question. For those of you who don't know Laureus, we're three different things: the Laureus World Sports Award, Laureus Academy, Sports Academy, and the Laureus Sport Foundation. And I'm part of that. And we're doing different things, but very much aligned, working together to generate impact in the lives of children and young people across the world. And after 25 years of grant making, 25 years of evidencing impact, 25 years of research into sport for development, we can safely say that sport does have the power to change the world, as it was expressed by President Mandela at the inaugural Laureus World Sports Awards back in 2000. And for us, that means harnessing and using the power of sport to end violence, to end discrimination, and to end inequality for children and young people in their communities across the world. And we are doing that in more than 250 programs in more than 40 countries across the world. So that's a bit about Laureus. You can learn more either by speaking to me today or go on our website, laureus.com. Now, to answer the question, I was thinking back of our experiences over the last 25 years, three key learnings that I would recommend everyone in this room take forward when starting to develop policies and investment plans based on the Charter. And one of them is don't make assumptions about impact. 25 years ago, well, for Laureus, it was enough to throw a football in the pitch and have children kick it around. And we thought that probably something good would come from it. Yes, good health, undoubtedly, but maybe also a bit of respect for the rules and respect for the others. But over the years, we can also see that making assumptions only and mostly end up reproducing some of the issues and some of the challenges we're also facing in sport, and which have been raised earlier today as well, including inequality, including discrimination. So don't make assumptions. Base policy and evidence, policy and investment on evidence of impact, on evidence of what it is that works in sport. Of course, we agree very much with the messages that it is about taking appropriate steps. It is about education. It is about developing students, values-based, ethics-based, and it is about developing competencies through sport. So to do all this, we also need to throw the rule book in the air. It might not sound very good based on the speech we've just heard from Mr. Bach, that we all need to play by the same rules. We do, but the rules that we have right now are not necessarily catering for everyone who engages into sport and physical activity. So don't be afraid to stray from the beaten path if this is what it takes to empower young people to change their lives in and through sport. Adapt. the rules, adapt the interventions, adapt sport to whatever social purpose you aim to achieve. And sometimes it is playing by existing rules, sometimes it is about changing the ways that sport is being delivered to children and young people to counter discrimination, to counter inequality, to counter a number of the other issues that are being raised. And then finally, and this might not be a popular message in this space, now I'm being looked at him with very staring eyes, very glaring eyes. Sport is not a magic bullet. If we just continue to deliver sport the way that we've been doing for centuries, we are not necessarily going to change a lot in the lives of young people. We need to make concerted efforts. We need to take, as it says in the sport charter, appropriate steps in our policy development, in our investments, to develop interventions, sport and physical activity that answer to the needs of children and young people. And that occasionally means complementing sport interventions with other types of interventions in an integrated manner. And that could, for instance, mean, and now I'm taking our conversations down a few levels into the community where programs are being delivered. It could mean integrating mentoring processes with children and young people that are facing severe trauma from the communities that they're living in, very much in conflict-affected communities. But it could mean a whole lot of other things. The key point is adapt and take appropriate steps to deliver sport and physical activity in a way that serves the social purpose, instead of assuming that the social purpose will come by itself as long as we invest into sport and physical activity. So that means turning things upside down a little bit. And when we do nail it, sports-based youth development, sport for development and peace can have extremely high social return on investment. And this might be an important message for people around the table. We have, over the 25 years, we have invested in loads of research at Laureus. Some of that research is looking into social return on investment. And one of the programs research is a program we're delivering in partnership with Ministry of Justice in the Netherlands, a crime reduction program that shows as high as €25 per €1 invested in wider savings for community, both for public sector and for the wider community. But broadly speaking, across all the different social return on investment pieces of research, it is a positive return on investment, ranging from around €5 to €25 per €1 invested. And with that very positive message, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Morten. And on to our final speaker. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Givry Seman, Lifestyle Athletes Manager of the National Institute for Sport Expertise and Performance, INSEP, in France. Givry, as a top-level judoka, how do you see the values of the European sports charter, such as fair play, integrity, and equal opportunity, influencing both your personal journey and the broader culture of top-level sport?
Thank you. Oh, yes. Thank you, Cassandra, for this question. Good morning, everyone. Thank you also for receiving me here, and I'm really happy to share with you an example of my sports career. So to answer the question, if the moral code of judo with its 8 values has guided me through my sporting career, there is no doubt that the European Sport Charter, whose values adopted by the member states, given the line of conduct to follow, has also helped to go with my journey. I started judo at the age of 13 at the Jean Moulin Secondary School, not so far from Paris, thanks to my physical education and sports teacher, who was also a judo instructor. And it seems that he was also good for talent detection. My school was affiliated to the Federation of Secondary School Sports in France, called UNSS, which offer a diversified range of sports, about 116 sports. This is really huge. Delighted with my first steps in this discipline, I joined the club of my city, and then a few years later, the National Institute of Sports Expertise and Performance, INSEP. This tutoring and sports offers echo with the 3 articles related to high-level sport, but also to sport for all of the European Sport Charter. Indeed, the Articles 12, 13, and 14 encourage states to set up with a diversified offer and physical and sporting activity for all, but also up to high health level, while promoting the quality of staff and the provision of facilities that improve performance, the health, but also development of each individual. This is exactly what I was able to benefit from. Discovery of judo activity in my school, then in a club with more intense practice, and finally in high-level structure with twice daily trainings. All this supervised by teachers, coaches, competent volunteers, within structures able to welcome me and promote to the achievement of my goals at different times of my life. This is an example, or this is show what is important and the important links between grassroots sports and high-level sports. And I think that you know that a lot of high-level athletes started to practice their sport at school. That's why it's really important that we must continue to strengthen these links. Another value that's rocked my career as high-level athlete is fair play. For me, this refers not only to respect, but also when you practice an art martial is really important, but also the fight against doping. And I think that Linda also highlights the importance to continue the fight against doping. It's really essential in order to preserve the physical and physiological integrity of the athletes. This code of conduct is not immutable, and the revised charter in 2021 to adapt to social challenges is one of example of this. The legacy of sport is at stake, and it's up to each one of us to continue to keep it alive and to follow its application. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Elise. I thank all speakers for their wonderful contribution on the panel. It was delightful to hear all different perspectives bringing to light the various articles of the European Sports Charter. I now invite you to view a short video on the European Sports Charter. Thank you.
Sport brings people together, fosters mutual respect, and drives positive change across societies, inspiring us to be our best selves. The European Sports Charter is built on values and is the touchstone for those who believe in the transformative power of sport. It commits to sport for all, the right for everyone to embrace the joy of sport without violence or discrimination. It ensures that in every competition, on every pitch, not only do we strive to be our best and follow the rules of the game, we respect the very essence of fair play. It helps us build communities that stand together, where cooperation and mutual support are a given, and our shared passion is mirrored in our individual achievements. It uses the transformative power of sport to build healthier, happier lives. It creates a real level playing field so that no matter who you are, you have an equal chance to shine. It stresses the need to safeguard young athletes and help them realize their potential. It upholds integrity of the game and gives no ground to cheats. It shows us that sport is more than a game. It's a celebration of diversity, breaking down barriers, especially for the vulnerable, such as children, migrants, and people with disabilities. It shows us the true value of sport goes beyond the playing field. It can lead to lifelong learning, personal growth, and leadership. These values are the heartbeat that drives us, that transcend boundaries, inspire greatness, and leave a lasting legacy for generations to come. Now, more than ever, it's time to ensure that the provisions of the European Sports Charter become a reality for all.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you to our speakers of this spotlight session. Thank you to the colleagues that prepared the video. It's great. Thank you very much. So we will now break for coffee for a 20 minutes break. Let's be back in 20 minutes in the room, please.